Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. First of all, everyone, you should recognize our guest. We have Jodi Miller back on the podcast for her third appearance. She is now one of, I think, 5 or 6 that have been on the podcast 3 times, which really shows, how much we enjoy having her on. But she's coming to us from Texas. And one familiar thing that I really think is, ironic about this is that I scheduled this podcast with her before I even knew this, but in Minnesota, because this is going to be released before the lockdown comes into effect, because we are going into another lockdown in about 4 or 5 days. And we had her on like 2 days into our first lockdown, so it's just fitting that she's on for the second time so we can go through this all again, this whole second, trial of human will that's gonna maintain this lockdown. But before I get into that, because that's depressing enough, and I don't want to start this off super depressing. Jodi, what is the weather like in Texas today? Because I gotta hear something positive at least.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well then I'll just let's see if that oh, there you go. Nice and sunny. Yep. But that's okay. I mean, what, a few weeks ago it was like in the 30s here. So it just they say, if you don't like the weather in Texas, stick around 5 minutes and it'll change. So who knows? You never know what you're gonna
We have
get.
heard that from 5 different Texans that we've had on the podcast, so that's literally got to be a saying. But we are getting small snowflakes falling right now, but nothing too major. But I don't want to get into that again too, because that's just depressing me. But Jodi, I mean, this has been 8 months since we talked, but it feels like a decade. And what have you been up to since this? I mean, especially during lockdown and during this pandemic, because it's just I just can't even get into how much this has changed the way that we lived. And when we were first talking, we were talking about how hopefully it only lasts a couple of weeks or it might last a month or something. But now it's like I should do that tagline where it's like 8 months later, and then it cuts to where we're at right now. But what has this all been like for you?
Texas has not had as severe of lockdown and mandates as other states. And we were in lockdown for a couple of months. So I think March 17th was when it started, and May 18th was when it was fully lifted. Um, and so the gyms opened May 18th. So people are like, "Ooh, how are you making it through without going to the gym?" I'm like, "I've been going to the gym since May." So uh, there is a mask mandate for the state. The gyms don't follow it for the most part, at least in the Dallas area. The gyms don't follow it. So that's been my thing of trying to um, kind of maneuver myself logistically in going to the gym. If I want to go to a particular gym that has all the equipment that I really want, which is a smaller, more bodybuilding type of gym, then those gyms are not following the mask mandate at all. Like they're very much like my body, my rights, my civil liberties. Um, so I will go there maybe once or twice a week, very, very late. Like I'll go at 9 or 10 o'clock at night when there's very few people. I'm the only one sometimes out of anywhere of 20, 30, 40 people wearing a mask sometimes. Sometimes I'll see like 1 or 2 other people. But and then the bigger franchise gym, the bigger chain gyms will do a little bit better job of adhering to it. And so it's kind of a 50-50. Half the people are wearing it. Some of the people are wearing it, around their chin where it's really helpful. And the rest are just like completely, they put it on to get in and then take it off. So at least with that, I can just kind of maneuver around and try to go when it's not really busy, try to stay away from people. The So it's 24-hour fitness, and their hours are not 24-hour right now. They're only open till 9. So sometimes that's a tough thing. Like I like working out at, basically going to the gym at about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And so that's been probably, as far as working out wise, that's been one of the toughest things to adjust to, that I can't get into a rhythm or a schedule. And my schedule is different every day, anyways, because I'm doing a variety of things. I'm tutoring students, I'm teaching some writing classes, I'm working on editing and proofreading projects. I do have a few clients that I train or work with. Very few. I've kind of inched my way away from that. So just trying to, figure out, when am I going to work out? Where am I going to work out? Am I going to be the only one who's having the respect of the others around me? Um, yeah. So
What was that like wearing the mask in the gym? Because I'm luckily where I have my parents' stuff at home, so I don't really have to go to gyms. But was that a struggle for you at first getting used to that? Because I've heard from so many people that that is something that really, really caps, I think, a lot of your, you know, a lot of your mental energy, and it really, people really struggle with those, I feel.
yeah, I feel like a lot of it is psychological, to be really honest. It's something we're not used to. I kind of joke around that so many in the fitness industry manage to wear waist trainers. They're way more uncomfortable. But the mask is an area of contention. I think it's more of a political contention, and people don't like being told what to do, and it's something new. And they're not willing to move forward with what the evidence shows. And it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, no. If you don't take the time and try some different ones and figure out, there's some masks that, no, they're really horrible to wear. They don't stay in place, they're not breathable. But it's just like anything else. I mean, your underwear, you buy a pair, you don't like it, you can't breathe in it. You go and you find another pair, you don't just forego it and go naked into the gym or the restaurant. Um, so I I I wear a mask 100% of the time if I'm in a public place. If I'm outdoors, if I'm not around other people, then I don't wear a mask. If and I don't do anything anyways in crowded areas. Um, so if I'm going to the gym, my mask goes on before I step into the gym, and it only comes off in order to take a drink of water, and it comes off once I've left the gym. And I do legs. I do this. I'll do 50 minutes on the stairmaster with it. Is it fun? No. Am I overjoyed by it? No. Is it something that I would choose to do on my own if there weren't benefits to others and myself? No. Um, but I understand the scientific evidence. Um, I do not believe this is a hoax. And I have respect for the community around me. And so it is a decision, it's a conscious decision that I make. And, I think that there's a lot of things I find it interesting and amusing. I'm gonna piss off a lot of people in the industry probably, but that's nothing new. Um, I find it interesting that bodybuilders do some of the oddest, most uncomfortable, most ridiculous, most painful, um, unhealthiest things, and yet won't wear a 3 by 5 inch mask to cover three orifices on the face. And it does come down to, it is people have placed unduly polit- a political atmosphere on a piece of cloth. And if that was not done, I mean, masks don't stop you from getting oxygen, and they don't kill you any more than a seatbelt stops your heart from beating. So I know that some people won't like it. I've lost a lot of followers this year, a lot, and I haven't even been as outspoken as I can be or want to be on my page. But I've lost hundreds upon hundreds of followers this year. I gain a lot of followers, so I kind of have come out a little bit breaking even, like within 50 followers of where I started back. It actually started right around the George Floyd death.
Which by the way I'm 15. I was 15 minutes away from basically where that happened. Yeah, I'm right out in the suburbs, like right below that. So yeah, I had to come home from work, and I had to, we had to basically, we had a week basically of, lockdown where we had to go. I had to be dismissed at work at 8 o'clock because curfew, and yeah, that was a whole thing. And do you remember part of that story? Well, here's a little personal thing. Do you remember part of that story where they thought that that trucker was trying to run down people on the highway when they were protesting? That huge truck that drove through, and they turned out that it was like a driver who just didn't know where he was going. My brother was on that highway during the protest, and he was one of those people that almost got hit. So then we called him like right afterwards, like, we can see you on the TV. Basically, he was like on the side of the street. Yeah. So yeah, he came home and he was like, yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's a whole thing too. And yeah, that was, I mean, wow, just to be alive. I mean, they still have businesses that are still boarded up here, not where I live, but close where if I go out and drive, I can see them. But yeah, that's a whole topic where, I mean, we could talk 100 hours on that. But that's just, yeah, it was just a crazy crazy thing, and it's we're still recovering from it. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, and I'm glad that you posted stuff about it. Yeah, because a lot of people weren't and a lot of people were, but it's nice to have that voice out there that even people that you might follow for reasons that are not political at all, it's nice to have them know that, like, they still do things other than just working out, where they at least have a brain where it comes to political stuff. Because some people, I think, have that misconception where, oh, these are just a bunch of gym rats that don't know anything. It's like, no, a lot of them have PhDs. A lot of them like actually do stuff with their lives other than just working out, which is something that I love to bring up on the show.
Yeah, and okay, so people say, "Oh, you shouldn't bring politics into like your." First of all, my account is not Fitspo. I mean, if you come to my page and you think you're getting Fitspo, I'm sorry, you you're sad. Somebody really misguided you.
You get more
Like I've
dog posts.
never.
You get more dog posts than you do Fitspo stuff if you follow her, basically. Yeah.
I mean, I write about what's in my mind, and I'm a writer. I'm a writer. I'm a writer, and I'm a teacher. I'm an educator at heart, and I happen to lift weights. I think a lot of people are just getting irritated. First of all, I haven't competed in over 2 years, and I may never compete again. And so my life, I'm not a bodybuilder and then a human being. I'm a human being who happens to do bodybuilding, and I happen to step away from the competitive stage for a lot of reasons. And I maybe one day I'll go back, and maybe I never will. Um, and I think that the people who a lot of people say that when they follow me, like they started following me because they like my pictures, but they stuck around because of my words. And so that's the people who do that, and they understand that and realize it, they stick around. And the ones who think I just am there as a circus animal to flex, um, then and the ones who don't have true respect for women being multifaceted individuals, then that's those are the people that I'll lose. And some of them are women. Some of them are I've lost a good percentage of women, actually. I think, and I haven't completely understood why. I would think that women would want to follow somebody who's outspoken and independent and assertive. But I don't know if that's a little off-putting and scary for some people. So, um, but yeah, I got a lot of heat and blowback and some unfollowing because I talked a bit about systemic racism, and and people refuted it, and and then from there, just that's where it just kind of bled throughout everything. It made it so that I wasn't sure of what do I post, because so my page is about me, so I put pictures up of me, but my hosts themselves are not like, oh, look at me, oh, she is fierce. um I instead am talking about things that are either bothering me or that I'm perplexed about, or that I mean, sure, I'll do some insipid little, you know, posts just to throw them in there so that, not every single post is a novel. Um, but I really do. Again, I'm a writer, and so I look at things in a very lyrical and poetic manner, and a lot of symbolism and a lot of thought process. And I talk about mental health. And to me, politics goes into um, societal welfare, well-being, and human care. And when politics are bad, people suffer, and it tends to be the people who suffer are the ones who have been suffering all along, and they just suffer more. And so I have really been confused um, and really torn on what to do and what to post, because it feels weird to post a flexing picture of me when I know my page is about me, and that's what most of the pictures are, and then try to talk about something like systemic racism.
At least you didn't do like a flexing pic and then you're just like Black Lives Matter underneath underneath. I know some people that actually did that, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like that's you totally don't understand that. And you can that's what I really appreciate about your profile too, is because yeah, you get into the topics where we'll have some of these, fitness influencers, they'll just do the blackout picture that everyone did where it's like end systemic race, and that's the only thing they ever talk about. That's the only thing they ever do. Then they're right back to their normal lives where you actually, I mean, you care about this stuff actually, as opposed to other people who just try to use it to benefit them and their lifestyle and their, monetization. Basically, they just try to use that to help gain followers and to make sure that they don't lose anything. So that's why I love having you on, because you actually talk about this stuff and you actually get into it. You're not just a lot like some of the guests that I have on. I'm not going to name names, but yeah, they're just in it just because it's the trendy thing to do.
I've seen several, and of course, it is all coming from white women. Um, but I have seen several comments in the fitness industry that, after the election, well, my life hasn't changed. Like, whatever happens, we just need to move on, and my life's no different, no matter what. And I am incensed by that, because no, you're that's the point. That's exactly the point. That but I'll tell you whose life, when the news when the media announced the projected presidential and vice presidential elect, I was tutoring a 7th grade student, a young black boy. And we were studying about the Constitution, actually. I was helping him prepare for a history test. And he was learning about the difference between Federalists and Anti Federalists. And he was learning about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and whether, should states have more power, less power. He was also learning about every state was to be represented by 2 people in the Senate. And so I was explaining to him some of those things, and we were in the middle of that when the announcement came. And I said to him, I said, "Do you know what just happened?" And he stopped and he was like, and I said, "Do you know what just happened?" He was like, did it happen? Did they get in?" And I said, "It's been announced." And then I said, "Do you know what Kamala Harris represents? Do you know what she has done and what that represents in history?" And we talked through that, of the trifecta of first that she represents. And I asked him, I said, "How do you feel?" And he was like, "Proud." That person's life changed. I don't care what white person is going right back to whatever they're doing the next day. There are so many people who have like this feeling of, okay, it means there's an open door for me, and I'm able to do the things that I want to do in life that are going to help other people and make sure that everybody I'm around is going to be better. So that's kind of that's how I see it. Sorry, I get really passionate about it. I get really pissed off when I see some things that are out there.
Yeah, and And that's one of the great things about, people talk a lot of trash about, like social media, but that now that you can just you can block people and stuff like that, so you don't have to deal with that. But that's great as well. But one thing that I wanted to get into with the pandemic, because we talked about this a lot when we were in the first phase the last time you were on, is you were concerned a lot about people's mental health because of just being locked up, and not that many people are used to this, and humans are social beings. Now we're 8 months later. How have you been dealing with all this mentally? Because I mean, it's a completely, I mean, I know for people like me and you who don't go out that much, it's been a little different, but it's been, not as much as, like my one brother who used to go out like every single night, where he's just having a rough time of this. But how have you been dealing with this all mentally?
I mean, I'm a homebody, so this was like, okay, great. Now the whole world is having to do what I choose to do. I mean, that was, I actually, so one of the things that I had been concerned about was, okay, I was really comfortable with the lockdown. It was kind of like, okay, we all can't go out. We're all dealing with the same thing. And then once it opens up, how am I going to feel about that? Because I still am adhering to the things that, you know, I am not eating in restaurants. I haven't I was going to get started with my posing workshops. In fact, I canceled my March posing workshop at the beginning of March before the threat of the lockdown was coming up, and I had a posing workshop that I could have held, and I just made the decision. I don't think it's responsible for me to do that, and I haven't had a posing workshop since because I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be held liable. Maybe nobody who comes to the workshop is going to be affected, but if somebody passes COVID along to somebody else unknowingly, and that person passes it along to somebody else who passes it along to somebody else who cannot handle it, I'm not okay with that, me personally. And I had to make that decision, and that's a loss of income, and that's a hit on my business. But it is something, and if I'm training somebody in person, I am going to ask them to wear a mask. I lost a client over it. She refused and said it was something she was no longer going to do, and she didn't believe in it. I'm like, it's not a religion. And so it was disheartening to understand that somebody has that little respect for me. I think that's a little bit of it that has been bothersome to me, is just to see a huge, there's a lot of nice words that flow out there, but there's a lot of not so nice actions that don't match up with those words. And that's been a really hard thing for me to just kind of come to terms with over this year. But it's been happening for a few years. And so this year just kind of like hit me in the head with it. So um, this has definitely been a year of just kind of struggling. It's transition. I graduated with my master's degree in January. So I didn't get. I was supposed to be able to go through my graduation ceremony in June up in Oregon. Didn't get to do that, and I think that didn't hit me until June came. I was like, oh, I'm one of those that can't go to my graduation. Like, they sent the gown and everything and the cap in the mail. That's when it really hit me, was when the gown and the cap came in the mail. Like, even though you can't walk across the stage, we want you to have this. So it was just kind of like, I mean, I know that's like a little bit of a first world problem. Like, I can't go to my graduation. But it's a symbolic thing too, because you work really hard at something and you succeed at it. And that was a 2-year program, and I did a lot of work, and to not be able to have kind of that, the fruits of your labor to be recognized. It was kind of, it was sad. And but where was I going with this? That Oh, so I graduated at the end of January, and my goal had been like in March and April to really kind of nail down hopefully going into the summer or the school year to nail down either an adjunct professor position or go to community colleges and see where I want to teach. And so when the shutdown happened and everything was just in like limbo with education, I didn't know what to do either. And I actually am really thankful. I mean, one of the reasons why I got my master's degree was because I was getting really sick and tired of the inconsistency and unreliability of clients in the training business. And I felt like I don't like my income being dependent upon people who treat this as a luxury or don't treat me with respect. Don't respect my time and don't treat this like a business. They treat me like they act like a friend, but they don't even treat me with the respect of a friend and don't keep their word. And so I don't want my bills dependent upon other people. And so I wanted to go. I knew I kind of wanted to get back into my roots of people know I used to teach high school English. My degree was in my bachelor's was in English. And so I really wanted to get back into that and then teach writing and English and literature again. I missed it. And so I ended up I had already been working with a tutoring company, so I ramped up on that. And but I was tutoring in person and all of that got cut down. So that was like, what now? So because that went to a complete halt and then it built back up when they started doing some remote classes and everything. And then I started working as a proofreader. And so I just started doing all these like little odd jobs in all different areas. And I just had to become comfortable with just going, things are a little out of whack and they're in all different directions. I'm not quite sure where I want to settle. And I have to accept this. And it was a transition. What made things harder was that throughout the shutdown and then even once we opened up, so my apartment, I was dealing with a water intrusion problem that the apartment complex was not fixing. They too were giving me a lot of words in the runaround and making empty promises. And I had a fight. I had to threaten legal. I actually did talk with a lawyer and I had to threaten legal. It was raining inside my apartment when it would rain out, like when it would have storms outside. And I live on the third floor and I have a two-story. So it was raining through the second story window. It turns out that there were holes in that window. And then water was flooding in through my balcony doors. And so it was really I spent a lot of this year. So I just turned 48 on Sunday and I was like, okay, 47 was a year of just being angry at everything. Like I'm gonna go into 48 and I'm just not. Like I'm just not gonna deal with it. If you make me angry, I'm done. Like you're gone. Just done. I'm just fine with me and my dog. And ironically, my mom and I were having some difficulties. I've posted this on my page. And my mom wasn't talking to me for a couple of years and she wouldn't explain why. I couldn't get out of her why, but she just absolutely refused. And right before the shutdown, she had a major heart attack. So back in February, she almost died from the heart attack. I spoke with the surgeon and he said that she had it was a black widow heart. So um and my dad is not really mobile. So my parents are in their late 70s. My dad will be 80 in January. So I stepped in. He called me frantic, not knowing what to do, and which is not like him. And I said, my mom was not talking to me and I said, I'll, I'll take care of it. I'll go to the hospital. I'll figure all this out. And I um, was the one who drove her home, got our prescriptions, called and checked on her. And ironically, I joked that I have the. It just took a heart attack, a pandemic, and a near lawsuit with a water intrusion problem from my mom, and I had to start talking again. And she still hasn't told me what it was, but now we talk all the time for hours.
Watch it be one of those things like you left the sink on or something like that, or you left the coat. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's
I have an idea what it is, but yeah. But in the meantime, I've lost some friends too, so I kind of am like, okay, had friends, no mom, mom, no friends. Okay, I mean, I have some friends, but I think that I've had to just come to terms with, I'm shifting gears and I'm changing, and I have to accept maybe my followers are not liking that I am no longer hardcore bodybuilder, but I mean, I lift weights, I take care of myself.
she still has the guns. Everyone. I mean, Jesus, that's just. I mean, yeah. I mean, look at that. She still got him. Okay, so yeah, everyone can stop.
but I just made some decisions that I didn't like where the division that I was in was going for my taste, for my body, for my livelihood, my well-being, knowing that I'm on the cusp of being 50. I just I don't I don't want to do this, and I have some other things that I want to chase down, and I think, back in March I was saying I wanted to start a podcast, and I do. I think some of it is I'm watching his followers leave me, and it is a little bit scary. But somebody that I tutor a few people, a few adults with writing, actually. So I don't just tutor students, but I tutor adults. And that person said, just if people stick with you, they stick with you, and if they don't, that's their problem. Like, do it, come out. You have a lot to say. And I when you stop competing, when it's been such a part of your life for decades, and you've gone at it from every avenue, and you have so much experience with it, and you're successful with it. I mean, I was successful. I didn't make it to the I narrowly missed the Olympia, but I was still a success. Um, but you finish that, and then you just kind of are like, I don't know where to put, I don't know how to spend this energy. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I don't know how to stop worrying about how my body looks all the time. I don't know how to stop critiquing my body all the time. I don't know how to get away from some of the dysmorphic mentalities. I I don't know how to be okay with missing some workouts. I don't know how to um, take the energy that I put into bodybuilding and put it into other things like my writing in the same fashion. Like, there's no there's nothing that prepares you for that. And I think that sometimes you see some of us who've been at it for so long, and then a lot of times you just suddenly stop. Like, you think that you're just going to trail off, or you think, oh, that'll happen like when I'm in my 60s or 70s, and you don't foresee it. And then something, it's just, for me, it's just a switch. It's like somebody just flipped the light switch off to off. When you talk about competing to me, I'm like, "Mm, thank goodness it's not me." And, and I never expected to have that happen. And it happened just like that. And I can't, that light switch will not turn on. Um, And I think that you see that women who that has been the case. I think a lot of us are kind of floating out there, getting our feelers. Like, okay, what do I do? And so we dabble in this and dabble in that. And I've been really hard on myself about, like, oh my gosh, like, what, you're being lazy and you're being ridiculous and stupid, and you should be more successful than this, and you should get this figured out, and not understanding. That switch went out about the same within the same month that Roxy had died. And it just hit me it hit me at several weeks ago that actually what I've been going through is I was grieving the loss of my dog, and I think I was grieving the loss of, even though it's my choice, but it is the loss of my bodybuilding career. That two things came to an end around the same time. And I never faced the fact that I was going through a dual grieving process. And so, of course, I understood I was grieving over Roxy and I moved through that. But I didn't understand that I was grieving over an end to a bodybuilding career. And when you don't face the grieving process and you don't face a loss and you don't accept that you have to go through the stages, you never make it through the stages. And those stages end up just taking over like a weed in a garden. And that's kind of what happened back when my grandmother had passed away. I'm an only grandchild, and she was a second mother to me. And I was devastated, but that devastation didn't hit me fully until a year later when it was my birthday. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hear from her. And I went into a 3 month straight up, just deep depression. Like I didn't even want to get out of bed. And but before that point, I was just like, I had had a promotion, I was working hard, I did a show, all these things that I did in escaping it. And I think I think that when you step away from bodybuilding, when it's been such a force and you go far in it, it takes over your entire life. Bodybuilding is different. I had to explain this to somebody. He was a football player. He used to be a pro football player. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I just mean like, oh, I had to explain it to this football player. No, he was a pro football player, and he was like, he didn't really understand how bodybuilding is so different from everything else. And I said, I mean, there's not another sport in this world that you change your entire lifestyle and body, everything. The shape of your body changes, your skills change, your mentality changes, the things you put into your body change, your morals change, your morals change, your focus and drive and food and how you spend your time. Absolutely everything changes. This isn't just you are building a skill set so that you can go into a game and perform the skill set and then look at that skill set objectively and know what to improve upon. This is so many moving pieces and factors, and it's all subjective. It is 100% subjective, and there's not a single objective measure to it in which you're graded upon. And so to walk away from that, of course, you're out there going, okay, I mean, what now? It's kind of like I just finished I finished watching the Hunger Games. I watched the Hunger Games because a student of mine was doing a project on the Hunger Games and the hero's journey. So I was like, I'm going to watch the movie so that I can, because she was doing it over the movie. So I said, I'm going to watch the movie so I can help you through the steps of this. I know, hard. It was a rough assignment. But anyways, actually, I thought that the Hunger Games was kind of like the Twilight series, and I was going to be like, oh my gosh, painful, like instead. And I actually really enjoyed it. I was very pleasantly surprised. And so I got the first book, and I read the book. But um, when the main character, Katniss, when she leaves the Hunger Games, the first time she's been, I think it's been like a month that they're there, or a couple months, and so she comes back, and it's like a night and day. Like, she doesn't know how to act in back in the world, back at the Capitol. She when she's done, she's just like, she still thinks that she's in the Hunger Games. She still thinks she's out there being hunted and needing to survive. And I think when you finish bodybuilding, you're like that.
Well, I like to compare it to, I love to have veterans on this podcast too, and it's just like that when they come back after their tour's over, they come back from war. I mean, I had, people that I know that from my dad's side of the family that, came back from Vietnam, and they just had a really hard time adjusting to things, and they just, yeah, so it's like that too. And it's like that for a lot of things too. Maybe not on that much of a like, extreme level. Like when I was done with baseball, I was like, oh, so what do I do now with my life? But it's not. I don't think it's anywhere near bodybuilding. But one thing that I really love about you is that you are open about like your past drug use that you've done in the sport, because so many people aren't. And there are a variety of reasons why people don't admit to it. But I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on your history of drugs in the sport and your view on it too, because I mean, not that many people are willing to talk about it. So, and I think someone like you talking about it would really, really help, end the stigma that a lot of people have about bodybuilding.
So, so I was a natural competitor. I competed in drug tested shows, drug tested powerlifting meets. I won the lightweight bodybuilding division at the NPC Team Universe. Back when the winners would go off to the IFBB World Championships. We were drug tested. It was the only national level at the time drug tested show in the NPC. I had done a stint in the INBA and I won the Miss Natural Olympia. I was drug tested for every single show for that. And when I turned, well, I think the signs of low testosterone were starting a little bit before I turned 40. When I look back, in hindsight, and I look at it. And so I dealt with those symptoms for about a year and a half almost. And after I was 41, in January of 2013, I went to the doctor and got blood work done. I fought with my general practitioner on trying to get my testosterone levels checked, and they refused. They refused to do the blood work. And a lot of women run into that. So I had to go to a hormone specialist and change doctors and in order to get my blood work done. And I think, maybe if 5 years before I had gotten my levels checked and had known, on a regular basis to get checked, maybe I could have staved off my testosterone levels from dropping so low. Maybe not. I don't know if it's oh, sorry, my computer was doing something. I don't know if it. I actually think it was from years and years of not getting enough sleep, on top of heavy dieting and everything. When I was teaching, I was competing. I was competing in the Galaxy Federation, and I mean, I was getting like 4 hours of sleep a night if I was lucky. So on a regular basis, I mean, I was teaching, and so you already don't get a lot of sleep. And I've always worked jobs where I'm working 10 to 12 hours a day, and I think that's another thing that I'm just at a point. People are like, work hard now, you can sleep when you die. And I'm like, you don't sleep now, you will die earlier. um, but i I ended up, because my testosterone levels were so low, I ended up having to get on to testosterone therapy. And I had never been on anything before that point. So we're talking, I started competing when I was 26. I started doing powerlifting when I was in college. So I was like 19. So if you go really way back to then, but as far as physique type of stuff, from 26 to 41. So what is that, 15 years? I was an English teacher. I 15 years of my career. So I competed until 2018. So 15 years of natural use versus 4 to 5 years of drug use. For anybody who says drugs don't make a difference, oh, stop. If you can say that, then either you have crazy genetics, and you can't say genetics don't make a difference either, because they do. Or you started with drugs so early on in your competitive career that you are not aware of what it's like to go through things naturally for a sustained length of time and know quintessentially what the difference is between not being on drugs versus being on drugs.
What are some of the biggest benefits that you think really came to you really early when you started? What was some of the things that you noticed flat up? Like, was it just more endurance? You could work out longer. What were some of the things that you really think started to kick in once you started taking something?
No, so the thing with my so testosterone, even though my testosterone was low, mean, I did powerlifting meets. I still broke records. I was breaking my own records, national records. I got ready for shows. I did a women's physique show. In fact, I got my national qualification for women's physique with my testosterone really low. So I was able to get lean and gain strength, and that's my body will perform no matter what. But I always was told you're too small. Like you're for bodybuilding, I was for figure, my lower body was too big and my upper body was too muscular and hard. I mean, that wouldn't go for now, the way figure is. And for women's, I mean, not women's physique wasn't out yet, but for bodybuilding, I was told I was just too small and not hard enough. And um, initially, just the testosterone itself, it was a size thing. I mean, I put on the upper body muscle that judges had been saying I needed to put on. And my strength didn't go like through the roof or anything because I'm already a strong person. So everybody does react a little bit differently to drugs. But in terms of size, when girls are told, get bigger, get bigger, get bigger, get bigger, you are asking girls to get on drugs. Like there's a point where you move at a snail's pace with putting on muscle. Like once you get past your initial getting in the gym and starting off, especially if you start off early, at some point it levels off and you just have these small increments of muscular gains. But you throw drugs into the mix, you may not be able to control where that muscle gain is unless you're very careful with your workouts, but you will gain size. That's a big part of what drugs are for, is to put on size and to try to stay as lean as possible while putting on the size. So I haven't gone through, and I'm not going to on here. It would be
No
on
problem. No
when I
worries. Yeah.
when I do my own podcast. Then I'll discuss everything that I do or have done because now I'm on just plain old testosterone. I will be on that for the rest of my life. But I will say this: every single thing that I did with steroids, it was all through my doctor. I had a prescription for everything. We had long talks. We discussed the pros and cons. We discussed dosage. We discussed absolutely everything. And I would do one thing. So when I did testosterone, well, I've done testosterone all this time. I have to. But I knew exactly um, what testosterone therapy did for me. When we added in other things in order to help with the hormone therapy, it was one thing at a time so that I knew exactly what that thing was doing and whether it was working or not, or what the side effects were. And I think that that is something that a lot of people don't do. They throw the kitchen sink. Like I compare it to if you, let's say, you get sick after eating chili, and that chili had just simply ground beef, kidney beans, tomatoes, and jalapenos, and water and chili powder. You could probably assume that it was the beef that was the issue. Like you'd be able to, uh, you know, make a guess at it, an accurate guess, without too much trouble. But if you made that chili with beef and ground turkey and some brisket, and then you also put in three different kinds of beans and all different types of spices, some Tabasco sauce, and just on and on and on. You see where I'm going. Was it the beef? Was it the brisket? Was it the turkey? Was it the chicken stock? Was it this? Was it that? You don't know. What are you going to do? Go cold turkey and throw it all out? And when you're dealing with your hormones, you can't just quit things cold turkey either. I think that I would never have taken anything if I never had had to get onto testosterone therapy. And I may never have turned pro either. And and that's being women's physique, where I went into women's physique at a time when those women's physique competitors wouldn't even be competitive with figure competitors now. The women's divisions have gotten out of hand. They just have. That's my opinion. I know some people are not going to agree, but
Well, and I've heard that a lot from people too, and I agree. Yeah, things have gotten a little out of whack. But lastly, I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to just the drug talk, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think people can do, or the industry can do, to make it healthier and safer for people? Because we've heard so many horror stories on here, or just seen from the public too, of drug use gone wrong, where people might take too much, and a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with people that might have like negative self images, where they just want more and more, people really sometimes take it to such an extreme level that it really hurts their health. And like you were talking about before, some people are afraid to wear masks, but they're doing all the other stuff to their body, which is 100 times worse. What do you think are ways that maybe not even the industry, but just in general, people could make it so that it's a little bit more known, but and it's a little safer too, so that people don't go to those extremes without knowing the result, like what could happen?
I think that the women who are competing need to take more ownership. Some people like to say, well, the judges shouldn't ask for this or that. But I say the judges are asking for whatever the competitors give to them. And when I was competing in 2017 and 2018, what I felt like I was in a contest of keeping up with the Joneses. So I don't know if I put this analogy up the last time on your show, but I'm fine with repeating myself. Um, So let's say you live next door to somebody and you are in competition with them. Like they go and they get a new car and let's say they get a Mercedes, top of the line Mercedes. So you're like, I'm going to get a Mercedes. Like you want to look just as successful as they are. And you get a C class Mercedes. No frills or anything because it's all you can afford. And even that is kind of pushing it. And then they trade in the Mercedes and they get a Land Rover. And then you go and you trade in your Mercedes and you get a baseline Land Rover. Like they went and they got some big one and then they go and they get a Porsche. I mean, you're still only able to do what you're able to do, and somebody else is always going to do more. And in bodybuilding, it's a lot of people are always going to do more. And then also, drugs impact different people in different ways. Some can do a little and get a lot out of it. Some have to do a lot and they get very little out of it. It just depends on. Again, you can't outwork. I mean, if you have bad bone structure, there's just nothing you can do about that. You can't change the length, the insertion points of your muscles. You can't change how your muscle sits on your bone. You and just growing muscle is not the answer necessarily. Um, but if everybody goes to the extreme in building extreme lats, extreme shoulders, extreme everything, and getting extremely dry, extremely lean, and nobody says, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. I'm going to show up the way I think the division is meant to be. And not enough girls do that. It's always going to go to the extreme. Bodybuilding is an extreme sport. It's an extreme sport for extreme personalities who typically have either a void in their life or have some psychological thing that they're trying to deal with. And that's why they're a part of this. And nobody wants to sit and say, wait a minute, why am I putting these things in my body? What am I going to get out of this? Is this really like I had to sit back and go, is this really how I want to look, or have I gotten caught up in what others want me to look? And I realized I never wanted the upper body mass that judges were asking for. And judges were asking for that because I was on stage with other girls who had way more upper body mass than I did. And so I look at my fellow competitors and I say, are you aware of how your decisions affect others? And I think that what happens is some competitors say, I don't want this anymore and I'm going to step away. And then it leaves the really extreme. And so I do have like a series of questions that I think women have to ask themselves. And a lot of it is what do I truly want for my body? For now, for 5 years from now, for 20 years from now. What am I willing to do? What risks am I willing to take? What do I think is worth? And what do I not think is worth it? And then I think that in the fitness industry, competitors do a real disservice to each other when they tout themselves as being just so boss girlish and so, ooh, I'm tough and I'm a beast and I'm so incredible and I stand taller and the reason why I'm better than you is because I work harder. No, you chose to work hard in one element of your life, and I chose to work hard in another element of my life. Doesn't make one of us better or the other one better. But that attitude of seeing that over and over on social media, and I think social media is a huge problem. And it's seeing it over and over in social media, you make somebody go, oh, I need to work harder and do more. And then there are coaches, usually male coaches, who are saying, well, if you want to look like that, then you have to get on this and this and this. And for most, unless you really do have a hormone problem and have a doctor that um, you can trust and work with and who is knowledgeable, you're not going to get those things legally. And then you are running into issues of, are you getting what you think you're getting? Are you getting the dosage of what you think you're getting? If you start having some different reactions to it, maybe it's not what you thought it was. And then also, just because one girl was able to take something and not have side effects, that doesn't mean you are going to be so lucky. And you don't know how many cycles in it's going to take before you do get those side effects. And then you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now and how your decisions for your body now are going to affect you 10 years from now. Bodybuilding is not healthy. It's not. There are foundations and aspects to it that are healthy. But there are so many elements to it that are not healthy. It's not healthy to the body and it's not healthy to the mind. And you have to go into it and understand that and know that it is a little bit of a Hunger Games. You're going to go in, you're going to try to just, save yourself and try to get back to the capital and live the rest of your life.
Which, by the way, I liked the book. Did you like the book better than the movie? Because I enjoyed the book a lot more. It had a little bit more extra stuff that I think the movie wasn't able to do. Just because with a lot of books, they're a lot better than the movies.
Yeah, so I think the movie was done extremely well. There were some decisions that they made in the movie that they did some things differently than the book.
I will say though, like if anyone hasn't read the book, and the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, Jennifer Lawrence doesn't really talk. She's kind of like a loner. She doesn't do anything. Then I read the book and I was like, oh, she played that actually perfectly because that was what it was meant to be. Because before I was like, oh, was she just shy for this role or something? And then you read the book and you're like, oh, that's why she played it like that, and she actually did it perfectly. Just stuff like that really intrigued me too.
Well, wait, you have to. So the Hunger Games is written in first person from Katniss's point of view. So technically, she's talking all the time in the book. I mean, we hear it from her head, and so the movie is different because it's not first person. It's a third person view. And so I think both had good aspects and both had some not so good aspects. Um, I usually I try to read the book first and then sorry, he's just like wanting he's a child. Um uh Usually I try to read the book first and then I watch the movie. And so it was I kind of now want to watch the movie again to fully understand like, oh, okay, so this scene went this way in the book and that was how it was in the movie. Um so But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed both actually. Um, whereas I felt like Twilight was just really stupid.
I watched half of the first one when it came out when I was like 14 or 15 or something like that, and I was like, oh, this is stupid. But I will say, so I have been getting into reading more books during this quarantine. The one book where the movie is 10 times better than the book is right here, Jaws. I read the Jaws book, and it is terrible compared to the movie. Like, it's, yeah, for anyone out there, there's a video that I can link below where there's this channel where people go over books and they watch the movies and they compare how different the books are to the movies. It's called Cinefix. Anyone out there who's interested in that type of stuff, go and look it up. They do it for they've done at least 80 different movies and books. But yeah, that's the one I will say. But I love doing that now where I have literally, I could turn my computer screen around and I literally have stacks of about 50 books just on all sides of my desk here of movies that I've watched. And I was like, oh, I want to read what it is. Like I have Blade Runner. I have, what else do I have? I have Rambo, which by the way, Rambo, that's one where it's 100% different. And I don't even want to get into that. But, yeah, so I've been really, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about these kind of things. But one of the last few questions that I wanted to ask before we wrap things up here is, now that you don't think that you're going to be competing anytime soon, if ever, how has your training really changed now that you're just training really to just have a healthy and fit lifestyle? How have you, and especially during this pandemic too, how has your training changed overall?
I really don't skip leg days, but I skip some upper body days. So I wanted some of the bulkiness from my back. I wanted that to kind of come off. But I train my lower body pretty similarly. I just don't worry about trying to meet a standard that somebody else wants. I just am focused on me. If I miss a workout, I miss a workout. Um, I mean, the muscle isn't gonna. It's really. Yeah, I'm actually learning how tough it is to take muscle off because I was thinking I would do wellness, and I still think my upper body is a little too big and just too hard for wellness. And I mean, that's after 2 years of trying to get some size off. So um, I just kind of go by instinct and what I want to do. I find sometimes I sit there and I go, I don't know what to do. It's very confusing to be in this kind of place and not knowing. And I think what makes it worse is because I don't know what gym am I going to go to? What time am I going to go to the gym? And just dealing with it. Like I would like to go to the gym and not feel it is not fun to be at the gym and be the only one wearing a mask with 30 people around. I mean, it is just, it makes me extremely self conscious to be around my peers, to be around supposedly like minded people, and to be the only one wearing a mask. And it is just so, my anxiety is heightened, my anger's heightened, my self consciousness is heightened. I mean, I'm already kind of different in the industry. So to have this on top of it, it's a lot of mental work. So I end up walking away really exhausted, like mentally. So I think it's just trying to figure out what do I want from my body. I still want it to look a certain way. What type of performance do I want from it? And what do I have to do in order to get those things? And so I still, again, I just feel like I'm in a mode of just transition, and I haven't, it's like you're on one piece of land and then you are crossing on a bridge over to another piece, and I'm still on the bridge. Like this is, yeah.
Unexplored territory, and it's great that you're so open and honest about that because yeah, it's I like to compare it to like retired athletes too, yeah, where they're just like, what do I do now with my life? I mean, I still want to be in shape, but and that's just great. And I mean, yeah, again, this is just so great having you on and talking. You're one of my favorite guests. I think that's easy to say just because you're so open about everything and you're so easy to talk to. But I ask this question to every single guest, and I've asked you this twice, but I have to ask it again now, knowing that I normally it's when we talk a year from today, where'd you like to be at in life? But again, last time when we talked in the start of the pandemic, if you would have predicted everything that's gone down to go down, I would have, bet my entire life savings against it and I would have lost a lot of money. So I mean, who knows? If we're talking a year from today, there could be a fire in the background. You could hear gunshots in the background. Who knows what life is going to be like a year from now? But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at a year from today when it comes to just, your overall life, just some, or maybe your, health and fitness too? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to a year from today?
I'm hoping that things will open up and I'll feel comfortable with traveling. So I would like to be able to go on a road trip somewhere. I want to, again, I said it before, so I'm hoping maybe I'll get this set up. I would like to start my podcast, and get over my fear of how people will react to me speaking my mind, and sharing things. I really want to, my goal is this year, before the year is up, to uh, create a writing class for adults. And some of my followers have said that they're interested. So to maybe start doing that. I do this for students, for kids, in all grade levels. So and the kids have fun, and that is even doing, over Zoom and remote learning and learning ways to get them involved. So I want to do that for adults, um, and I think get a little more active in trying to make sure that some of the political things that have happened this year and the last 4 years don't happen again, and not get to, that that's not necessarily the most popular opinion in the fitness industry either. Um but yeah, so I don't know, to just start putting my energy into some other areas that are going to be helpful for people with their creativity and their intellectual thought processes.
That's awesome. And again, we wish you nothing but the best. And hopefully, the next time we do have you on, things have gotten a little better. But right now we're at that point where I think it's just getting worse and worse. So who knows what it's gonna be like? Who knows what the holidays are gonna be like this year, especially. But yeah, it's just the time that we live in. But again, Jodi, we cannot thank you enough for coming back on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you as always. And again, one of the reasons why I love you so much is that you do most of the talking, so I can just sit back and relax a little bit. And my mind can just I can just be thinking about warm weather and cool, and having a margarita in my hand or something like that. And hey, I really enjoy that. But again, Jodi, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Oh, one thing, I'm reading Dune.
Dune. Oh my god. Okay. This is a whole so yeah, that is a whole cluster in and of itself where have you seen for first of all, have you seen the movie that they did in the 80s on it before? Don't watch that because that movie is horrible compared to the story, but the new one that's coming out, it looks incredible. So hopefully they can finally do it right. So,
That's why I wanted to read the book.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's what I'm in. I just finished reading All the Light We Cannot See, which was set in World War II in Germany and France, and so now I switched gears, moving into sci-fi dystopia. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Oh, well, I personally just finished Nothing Lasts Forever, which is Die Hard basically. That's what they took the plot from, and it's totally different. But yeah, that in that one, John McClane is a fat, overweight, like out of shape cop and stuff like. It's really it's totally different, but it's the inspiration for it. But yeah, so and again, you guys go and read too, everyone. That's one thing that we can get out of this podcast, other than talking health and fitness. Read more. People do not read as much as they should. I mean, all the smart people that I know are basically just avid readers too, and it really just helps your brain and stuff. And go and read a book, especially now that you're gonna have all this free time. Especially my Minnesota listeners, now that we're gonna have all this free time, go and read a book. It's something to really help pass the time, and it really just with your imagination, it's incredible. And Jodi knows that better than most people, being that what she does, and it's it really really helps you.
It builds compassion and understanding, and the more you read, the better you speak, the better you write. You recognize patterns. You okay?
Oh God, yeah. Well, that's one of the best ways to end it. And yeah, he's just adorable. Yeah. So and yeah, just those type of dogs. I just always love them. I'm a huge now. When I do eventually get my first dog, I'm gonna have to go with a corgi just because that's I can't. We have corgi races at our track near our. Oh, look at that. Is he a guard dog
That's
when he
all.
needs to be, or is he always just sweet and lovable? Because our dog, how little she is, she barks way too much.
Lovey. He's just sweet and lovable. He's a warning dog, so if somebody, he'll bark, but I mean, he's not gonna do any. He has no aggression whatsoever. He is very.
Our dog has no aggression, but a guy came to fix our fridge, and for like 2 hours, I had to keep her in my room, and she was scratching at the door the entire time, trying to get it. She barks at anything that moves, and she doesn't stop. Even when people leave that she likes, when I leave, she'll bark for like a minute just to trying to tell me to basically stop. Basically, that's what she does, at least.
Yeah, no, he just wants to say hi to everybody. He's a social butterfly. He loves everybody, loves all dogs, he is very happy. He's very.
My mom for some reason loves to get the runt out of every litter. I mean, we've had two dogs and both of them she says she wants to get the runt just because she likes that. So our dogs have always had sort of, I think, like Napoleonic complexes where they're the smallest ones, so they just don't. But yeah, it's I mean, I'm going to talk dogs one of these podcasts just because I can't get enough of them. I'm one of those people where sometimes I need to be a little too careful, where if I see a dog out there, I'll just go in to pet it without knowing. I did. So here's actually a story. So during this pandemic, about a month ago, I was driving right down by a lake that I live kind of close to, and I saw a dog without a collar just walking around. Oh my, or no, it had a collar on, but it didn't have an owner with it. It was just running around. I was like, oh, okay. I stopped in the middle of the street, which, I mean, it was a street that wasn't really used that much, and I followed the dog for about half an hour. Finally found it. Finally was able to like corner it, and then I went up to it carefully, and I just made sure that like it didn't get spooked or anything. So I went up and I saw its name was Snowball, so I called the owner. Then as soon as the car came, the dog ran away because I couldn't hold it because I didn't want to pick the dog up because I didn't know if I'd get like nipped or whatever. So we spent about 2 hours searching for the dog, but we finally found it. So that's the type of person I am if I see a lost dog. So I am not an ideal person to like go out and do stuff with, because if I see stuff like that, I'll be like, okay, we're canceling everything we're doing. We're finding this damn dog and we're gonna bring it back to its owner. So yeah, but yeah, it's again, Jodi, it's just so awesome to have you on, and I couldn't think of a better way to end it than like this. But again, you guys, Jodi Miller, go and give her a follow. She's an awesome person to really go and give a follow and just really check out everything that she's done. So again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.